Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Miguron Eriko, which is a little bit of a departure from some of the stuff that they have done here recently, and it's fairly interesting. So thank you very much to Miguron for sending this in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife is available, and I will link it right down in the description so you guys can check it out, along with Miguron knives in general, because they make a lot of really good stuff. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and get a measurement. The overall length of the Eriko is coming in at 8 inches. Blade length, 3.5. Cutting edge, also 3.5, or possibly a hair shy. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2? You can see here this is what I would call a full-size knife. Not quite as big as the Rat 2, but definitely full size. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Demco AD 20.5. There we go. How about up against the, let's just do a few more. Spyderco Para 3, maybe the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue, and the Benchmade Bug Out. For some reason I did everything I normally do except for the Spyderco PM2. So let's go ahead and do that just to round it out nicely so everybody's brains can proceed with the day. How's the action? It's pretty good. It's about what you'd expect from Miguron, right? It's not going to be completely and totally fall shut out of the box. At least that's not my experience. Feels like a little bit of a kind of, that's the feeling of the bearing sort of wearing their race into the face of the blade tang, or what we would refer to as a blade tang, I guess, on a folding knife, which is really not actually the right term. So the pivot smoothness is all right. I imagine that that will dramatically smooth up over time, as is the case with pretty much every Miguron knife I've ever handled. Deploying it with the fuller, or the little hole, is actually pretty nice because it runs almost the entire length of the blade. So you can kind of use, like, for example, here's my third finger and it works just fine. The detent is kind of a medium light. So this low profile flipper tab it works, but it's not very satisfying. There's not much room to get a hold of it. And before you've built up the amount of force that you are thinking you're going to build up before it breaks, it flips because the detent is, not quite tuned for a flipper tab, right? So if they're going to do a flipper tab, I would prefer that the detent was a little bit heavier. Even a little bit heavier detent would still deploy like this, and that there was a little bit more of a flipper tab, but it's fine. It's not that big of a deal. The detent is still plenty present, and it's not a knife that's going to come flopping out, right? Unless you do parkour while you carry your knives around, right? Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, it's really almost exactly the same. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3, we can see here that lengthwise, it's a little bit longer than the Para 3. Not quite as long as the PM2, and nowhere near as tall as either. These scales are also contoured, which is really nice. What are we looking at for materials? We're looking at carbon fiber and titanium right here. And then we have M390. Now, I've been a little bit wary with Miguron's M390 ever since I saw that the Valona was a big, I think it was the Valona was a big disappointment. They had it listed as 58 to 61. As everyone knows and everyone has read at this point, Laren Thomas, the great Laren Thomas, has come out and said geometry actually matters the most when we're talking about all of the elements that dictate a blade's performance. But he went on to say that it is really the combination of everything together, optimizing everything, including the heat treatment, that will really determine how a blade will perform. So Rockwell hardness is obviously still very, very important. And in my opinion, 58 to 60 is laughably low for M390, especially at this geometry and considering what this knife is meant to be used for, which is general EDC, cutting light to medium materials for little periods of time or long periods of time, right? So what do they have this listed as? They have this listed as 59 to 61, which is kind of like the industry standard. I still think 59 is too low, but 60 is okay. I always prefer to see 60 to 62 when it comes to M390. But 59 to 61 is right where everybody else is hitting it. So do what you will with that information. There's a pretty good chance that you're going to get anywhere from a decent to pretty good heat treat on this guy, or you might end up with a 59, which will certainly make it tougher and easier to sharpen, which is not really the goal with M390. But it's not going to be the best edge retention that M390 could possibly get. Again, geometry absolutely plays a role there. So M390 carbon fiber and titanium, and then we have a titanium backspacer, and we have a milled titanium clip. What are we looking at for weight? The weight comes in at, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm like mocking Larry Thomas. He obviously knows what he's talking about. And that's a wonderful watch. If you've not actually gone and watched that, where he talks with Zach from I think it's Zach in the Wild. Zach, formerly of Blade HQ. Actually, really, really awesome upload. 3.84 ounces, which is surprising. I really thought for sure this guy was going to come in heavier than that. It's almost a perfect 1-to-1 ratio in terms of like total amount of blade length to ounce and inch ratio, right? So pretty good, not bad. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. Can you tell that I've said that a few times? Just a few thousand times. I'm not crazy. Let's go ahead and stick this in there. It's a T8. We got a T8 right here. What do we got down here? Huh? That's a T6. This is a T6. Miguron would be cool if you guys jumped up to T8 on some of these, but it's not a deal breaker. You really have pretty minimal hardware, just one screw on each side. This one may or may not go all the way through, so that's pretty good. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness here real quick. I'm going to guess that comes in about 120 to 125 thousandths. That's my guess. Here we go. Boy, I'm good. 125 thousandths on the spine there, which is fine. Let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes here. Did I do everything? Sometimes I do so many unboxings in a row that I forget how I do reviews. So this is, I mean, it's still a pretty simple aesthetic. But it is a little bit, they did a bunch of stuff in a row that just almost all looked exactly the same. We had incredibly classic or traditional, handle profiles. And then it was like some variation of drop point. And then occasionally they would do like a worn clip or something like that. And this is still that. We still have this like, sort of straight edge and then the heavy belly, and we get a long fuller. And this blade could have gone on a bunch of different handles that they've released. And this handle is still definitely in the realm of traditional knife handle aesthetic. They've just done some inlays a little bit differently here. They didn't do texturing here. They did a carbon fiber inlay up here and one back here. And they also did it on the other side, which I really appreciate. I kind of expected them not to do that, but I like it. Not everything needs texturing to dress it up, and that's something that it seems like I always say a lot when it's just like plain tie, and I'm always like, I wish this was textured. I should probably switch it up and say something else, because really what I mean there is when I see plain titanium, as much as I know that people exist who just like a plain titanium handle, and I think that's fine. It should be an option, but I always like to see something else. I like to see something that gives it character, right? Because we have way too many minimalist aesthetic knives where the whole personality is nothing. It's kind of like you see the pictures of the people who kind of do the same cliche thing with fall. It's like your personality is just whatever season it is, right? There's not really anything going on there. I don't want to get too specific there, but I like to see some type of character because it makes it memorable. Otherwise, you just ended up, it's just another knife to throw on the pile, right? So while this isn't perfectly unique, there's nothing here that says I'm doing something different that nobody else has ever done. It's fine. It adds a little bit of character. And I'll remember this outside of a bunch of 6 or 7 Miguron knives that kind of all looked the same. As much as I enjoyed them for being practical profiles, a lot of them are just not memorable because they were all doing kind of the same thing. So that's nice. Ergonomically, it's very comfortable. We have a flat clip with edges of the clip being knocked down. So that's nice. No real hot spots there. Some of these edges here feel a little bit abrupt. These are kind of like 90-degree angles. It's not sharp, but it's just, you can tell, right? It's like contoured, edges knocked down here. And then all of a sudden there's this 90-degree angle on the inside. And you can kind of tell a little bit. And I think it's just the contrast of those two things. Access to the lock bar is good. I don't think they've actually, I think it's all flush, but they've knocked it out on either side. So it's all right there. really a comfortable knife. I feel like they should have extended the jimping a little bit further. It's kind of weird to me when the jimping's right here and I kind of like to like lay my thumb down, right? You have the option to do this or this. So it's weird to me that they just kind of stopped it at 4. Well, we get there. We got 5 jimps. I would have taken about 12 to 15 jimps. I think that would have been a little bit better. Simple blasted blade looks fine, right? We've seen this blade profile not just from Miguron, but from 1,000 other companies before. There's nothing wrong with it. It's nearly, I think it actually is fully flat ground, and it comes down to a reasonably thin edge with a reasonable tip. Should be good, plenty good for EDC. There's really nothing else to say. I will compliment Miguron's ability to keep all of their crap off of the blade. I always, if you gotta have your logo on something, do it on the pivot, put your information on the backspace, or, hell, even put it on the pocket clip, but don't give us a paragraph on the blade. It always looks bad. This looks good. It looks clean. I like it, right? It just says M390 on the other side, so that's nice. Come down here, not a whole lot going on. We don't have a lanyard hole, which is not a big deal to me, but it will be for the 7 people left on Earth who still attach lanyards to their pocket knives. I'm kidding, but kind of not. I've been making the same joke for like 2 years now, so. No, wait, I'm sorry. I've been making the same joke for like 5 years now. Yeah, it's still not getting old. I'm still enjoying myself. We have no position for a lefty pocket clip. I get that you didn't want to mill this area out because it might have looked a little bit ugly, but we got to find a way to accommodate for lefties. We have to, and I'm going to fight for lefties and not lanyard people, because lefties account for at least 10% of the population. That's a real issue. That's a real issue considering how little they are paid attention to when it comes to designs that, when they're deciding where to put the clip, they're like, of course, right-handed only. Am I right? Yeah, you probably are. You probably are right-handed. Wrap it around, tuck it into the clip here, so you can mill the slot back here, and then all you need is just screw holes over here. That might be nice. You can also come in from the other side underneath the backspacer, so you wouldn't need screw holes at all. You might in this case, since it's carbon fiber and you can't thread the carbon fiber, right? Unless you want to go the Benchmade route, where they insert the threads. But yeah, there's ways around this, is what I'm saying. So we should pay more attention to that. Steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop, which is great. We have a little stop pin back here, and there's actually some shouldering, which is nice. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No lock stick. No pivot lash. Nope. Let me take that back. There's a slight amount of pivot lash. Does that cause an issue in functionality? No, but it's something I check just to determine kind of their tolerances, their machining quality. How tight is everything? Is the hole in the blade, is it machined perfectly to fit around the pivot barrel? In this case, not quite. But it won't actually affect any functionality. It's just something I check for because I know some of you guys like to know that. Detent is fine. It's a little bit of a thud click. It's a thick or a clud. It's fine. You can make it click if you push it down really hard. Centering is spot on though, and that's nice. No detent lash or anything like that. And like I said, this will smooth up. It's not bad. You can kind of feel that detent ball wanting to work in a little bit, but it's okay. Conclusion, it's a pretty good knife, right? It's a little bit more memorable than some of Miguron's other stuff, but not so much that I'm like, oh my gosh, it's wildly different, right? It comes in at $189, which is still very much fair, especially considering they have at least brought the heat treatment of their M390, assuming if their website is correct, they have brought the heat treat of their M390 on this knife at least up to 59 to 61, which is the industry standard when it comes to production knives, and even some mid-techs, right? But I wish that the industry standard was a little bit higher. Of course, this is all opinion stuff, right? I think, I want to say like Bowler has it, like the people who make the composition, they have it a little bit higher. Don't they have it right around where I'm saying? I don't know. But just seeing what I've seen from performance tests and things like that, M390 seems to really shine. Like 60's okay. It really shines at 61 to 62. And considering the composition is not meant at all to be tough, that's kind of, we want to see those edge retention numbers combined with, of course, the
potential for corrosion resistance. There's a point where the corrosion resistance balance starts to drop off if you keep going higher and higher and higher, right? And then it obviously, if you really push it, then the already brittle composition becomes even more brittle. But it's nice to see that this one's at least up there. So honestly, $189 seems very fair to me. I don't really have an issue with that. It's it's nothing super special, but I think people who pick it up will enjoy it. That's going to be pretty much it for me. Like I said, this knife and Miguron knives in general will be linked right down in the description. Thank you so much to Miguron for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.